They thought they could bury the truth under asphalt and lies. That's what I told the city council when I slid the faded blueprint across their polished table. The one I'd found in my father's attic, dated 1972. It showed our family's land, 3 acres of rolling meadow, zoned for preservation, not the sprawling parking lot they'd just approved. Behind me, the room buzzed with whispers, council members shifting in their seats, their faces tight with practiced indifference. They thought I was just a librarian, a quiet woman with glasses and no fight. They thought I'd fold, but I'd been watching, waiting, collecting their secrets like books on a shelf. Let me tell you how I unraveled their scheme. Comment below where you're watching from. The bulldozers came at dawn, their engines snarling through the mist. I woke to the sound of metal clawing earth, shaking the windows of my childhood home. For a moment, I lay still, heart pounding, telling myself it was just a dream. Then I heard the snap of roots breaking, and I was out of bed, barefoot on the cold wood floor. From a window, I saw them. Yellow machines tearing through meadow where my father used to walk with me, pointing out constellations in the grass. The wildflowers were gone, crushed under treads. A man in a suit stood by a pickup, clipboard in hand, directing the chaos. I threw on a coat, no shoes, no plan, and ran outside. The air smelled of diesel and damp soil. This is my land. I shouted. He barely looked up. City approved, he said, tapping his clipboard. Eminent domain. Check the records. His smirk said he'd heard it all before. I didn't argue. I just turned back, the cold earth under my feet, and knew this was only the beginning. Back inside, I climbed the attic stairs, dust motes swirling in the slanted light. My father, Thomas Hensley, had been a surveyor, meticulous, the kind of man who kept every document. I found the box under a pile of old maps, yellowed files labeled Meadow Property 1972. Inside was a blueprint, signed by the county, designating the land as a protected ecological zone. No development, no construction, not then, not ever. My parents had bought it for $8,000, their life savings, to keep it wild, a gift for town. I was 12 when we'd walk it together, my mother sketching birds, my father measuring boundaries with a tape he'd let me hold. They died 5 years ago, a car accident, leaving me the house in the meadow. The city claimed eminent domain in 2024, saying the land was needed for a retail complex. I'd never signed anything. I set the blueprint on my desk, next to a black notebook I used for library budgets. On the first page, I wrote, Phase 1. Let them think they've won. That afternoon, an email arrived from Councilwoman Evelyn Pierce, head of the Planning Committee. Subject, official notice, Meadowview Retail Project. It was cold, formal. Dear Ms. Hensley, the City of Fairview has authorized a Meadowview Retail Project under eminent domain for public benefit. Objections must be filed within 10 days through city arbitration. I read it twice, then search her name. Evelyn Pierce wasn't just a councilwoman. She was a shareholder in Fairview Development, the company behind the project. Her LinkedIn showed her at a ribbon cutting with their CEO, all smiles, 2 years back. Conflict of interest didn't begin to cover it. I saved the email, took a screenshot, and started a folder labeled Evidence. Outside, the bulldozers roared on, flattening the meadow my parents loved. I thought of my mother's sketches, her love for the meadow's quiet. She'd say, Clara, anger is a spark, but plan is a fire. I wasn't angry yet. I was focused. The city council meeting was Tuesday at 6 p.m. in a fluorescent lit room that smelled of coffee and bureaucracy. I arrived early, blueprint in hand, and sat in the back. 30 residents filled the folding chairs, most unaware of the meadow's fate. Evelyn Pierce took the podium, her pearls gleaming under the lights. Good evening, she said. We'll start with a Meadowview project update. She nodded at me. Ms. Hensley, you requested to speak. 3 minutes. I stood, heart steady. This meadow, I said, is protected land, zoned ecological in 1972. I have the blueprint. My family never agreed to its sale or development. I'm asking you to halt construction and investigate the approval process. Silence. Then Pierce smiled, thin and sharp. Ms. Hensley, Eminent domain was invoked legally. The paperwork is in order. A councilman, Gerald Holt, chimed in. The county verified ownership. It's a done deal. I held up the blueprint. Then show me the deed transfer. Pierce's smile didn't waver. We'll provide it. Next item. I sat down, their dismissal fuel for my notebook's next entry. Phase 2. Dig deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bulldozer's hum lingered in my ears. I opened my laptop and searched public records. The county's online portal listed the meadow under a new parcel number, transferred to Fairview Development in January 2024. No record of my family's 1972 purchase. I requested the transfer documents, paid the $15 fee, and waited. By Thursday, a PDF arrived. It was a deed, dated 1972, with my parents' names, but a new clause added, stating the land was subject to city rezoning in 2023. The font was off, the spacing uneven. I opened the PDF's metadata in Adobe Reader. Creation date, December 10th, 2023. Modified January 3rd, 2024. IP address, 192.168.0.112. I cross-referenced it. The address traced to Evelyn Pierce's home office. Forgery. I saved the metadata screenshot, my hand shaking, not with fear, but with certainty. They'd faked it, thinking no one would check. I hired a lawyer on Friday. Margaret Voss, a property law specialist, came recommended by a retired librarian who'd fought a zoning dispute. Her office was a cluttered space above a bakery, smelling of yeast and paper. I laid out everything. The blueprint, the forged deed, the metadata, Pierce's ties to Fairview Development. Margaret studied the documents, her glasses slipping down her nose. This is fraud, she said. Felony level. We could file for an injunction, but it'll take weeks, and they're already grading the land. She paused. Or we let them build. Every dollar they spend becomes leverage. When we prove the fraud, their losses will be catastrophic. I nodded. Let them build. She leaned forward. We'll need more evidence. Emails, permits, council minutes. I'll file a Freedom of Information Act request. You ready for a long fight? I thought of my parents, the meadow, the promise to keep it wild. I've got time, I said. Over the next month, Margaret worked like a bloodhound. She filed FOIA requests, pulling emails between Pierce and Fairview Development CEO Daniel Warwick. One, dated November 2023, read, Deed updated. Holt confirmed. Filed by January. Holt was a councilman, a former real estate broker. Another FOIA grabbed the project's permits, listing the forged deed as proof of ownership. Margaret hired a surveyor who confirmed the meadow's boundaries matched the 1972 blueprint, not the city's new parcel. She ran the forged deed through forensic software, revealing 2 layers, the original scan and an overlay added December 2023. By April, we had a 5-part evidence file, blueprint, metadata, emails, survey, and satellite images showing the meadow untouched since 1972. Margaret showed me the file in her office. This is bulletproof, she said, but we wait until they finish. Maximum impact. Outside, concrete trucks rolled in. I nodded. Let them finish. The construction accelerated. By May, steel frames rose where wildflowers once grew. I stopped attending council meetings, stopped emailing Pierce, let them think I'd given up. My office became a war room. I pinned permits, emails, and photos to the wall, red for the city, blue for Fairview, yellow for evidence. A June email from Pierce to Warwick, swept up in the FOIA, read, Hensley's quiet. Close her file. I pinned it under arrogance. Online, Pierce posted updates. Meadowview retail on track. Jobs and growth for Fairview. The comments cheered her on. One resident wrote, Clara gave up. Good. Progress wins. I didn't reply. I just screenshot it, added it to the file. Every post, every permit, every dollar spent tightened the noose. By July, the complex was half built, $3 million deep. Margaret estimated $6 million by completion. I let them dig their grave, one concrete slab at a time. In August, Fairview announced a grand opening for October 15th. A sign went up, Meadowview Retail. Leasing now. I photographed it from across the street, zooming in on the date. The buildings were sleek, modern, with glass storefronts and asphalt lots. A coffee shop, a boutique, a gym. 6 businesses signed leases. Margaret got the contracts via FOIA. Standard terms for $1,000 monthly rent. Move in November 1st. I read them at midnight. The screen's glow lighting my desk. These were people like my parents, betting on a future they thought was secure. They'd lose everything when we struck. I called Margaret. What happens to the tenants? She was blunt. Their leases are void. They'll lose deposits. Maybe sue Fairview. It's not fair, but it's the cost of fraud. I nodded, staring at my evidence wall. Truth wasn't gentle, but it was necessary. On October 8th, the county inspector approved the complex. Certificate of occupancy issued October 10th. Margaret called. We filed Monday, October 13th. Civil complaint, lease pendens, criminal referral. All at once. I sat at my desk, the blueprint in hand, its edges worn from months of waiting. Outside, the construction crews packed up, their work done. They'd built a $6.2 million complex on land they didn't own, on lies they didn't question. Monday morning, Margaret walked into the county courthouse, 3 folders in hand. I waited outside, watching her through the clerk's window. She filed a complaint, the lease pendens, the referral. By 10 a.m., summons were served. Pierce at her office, Holt at his home, Warwick at Fairview's headquarters. The trap snapped shut. The reaction was swift. By noon, the local paper posted, Librarian Sioux City, alleges deed forgery in $6 million project. It named Pierce, Holt, and Fairview, citing the forged deed and metadata. Social media erupted. She's lying for attention. This will ruin jobs. Why didn't she speak up sooner? I stayed silent. The evidence would speak. Pierce's update stopped. Holt's real estate profile vanished. Fairview's website went offline. Margaret's investigator intercepted a call between Pierce and Holt. She has a blueprint. Pierce hissed, "It's over. Holt, we'll fight it. It's just paperwork." But it wasn't. The preliminary hearing was October 20th. Judge Laura Ellison, known for cutting through nonsense, presided. Margaret presented our case. The blueprint, the forged deed, the emails, the metadata, the survey. Pierce's lawyer claimed clerical error. Holt pleaded the fifth. The courtroom buzzed. Ellison issued a restraining order, halting leasing and sales, and referred the case to the DA. The DA acted fast. On October 23rd, they charged Pierce and Holt with forgery and fraud. Felonies, 3 to 5 years each. Fairview's insurance denied coverage, citing fraud exclusions. By November 1st, Fairview filed for bankruptcy. $6.2 million gone. The tenants pulled out, losing $90,000 in deposits. The story spread, regional news, then national. A property law blog called it a landmark case. On November 15th, Pierce and Holt were convicted. Pierce got 2 years, a $60,000 fine, and a banned real estate license. Holt got 3 years, a $80,000 fine, and a shattered career. The civil trial followed. On December 10th, I won. $150,000 in damages, $500,000 punitive, and an order to demolish the complex. By January 2025, the bulldozers returned, not to build but to destroy. I watched them tear down the glass and steel, leaving bare earth. The meadow was mine again. I hired a restoration firm. By March, they planted native grasses, wildflowers, and a single willow tree where my parents used to sit. A plaque read, "In memory of Thomas and Ellen Hensley, 1972. Truth preserves." The county passed a Hensley ordinance mandating deed transparency and surveys. Other states followed. On March 20th, the meadow reopened as a public preserve. 50 people came. A girl ran through the grass, laughing, her parents watching from the willow's shade. I sat nearby, the blueprint in my lap, and felt my mother's spark, my father's fire. Not revenge, but truth, coming home. Thanks for watching. Share this video with someone who loves a fight for justice.